Yeah. Ow! Yeah. Y'all think too small, I got big dreams. You just starting, I'm way ahead at the end scenes. Started reading and dodging all of the quick schemes. Money like your Spotify, boy, I got 10 streams. And I'm still looking for more. My people, they got a soar. I'm putting that on the Lord. Ain't accepting ignore, just kicking down all the doors. Guarantee you, boy, if I ask for it, it's gotta be real big. I gotta make it just for my kids and for their kids' kids. That's wealth years and years. Promise my brother soon as he out and finish this bid, we finna do it bigger than anybody ever did. The odds is real big. Jobs that's real big. Satan trying a little, my God is real big. Stayed up on the grind on the cards is real big.
Wow. Look, another Fireside chat. I'm so excited as always trying to bring wealth and knowledge around real estate and building wealth and trying to educate people's mind. But today I like to always start off with a positive message. I want to tell you, I want you to sit back for a second and lean in real close because everything I'm about to tell you is about you. When we talk about change and opportunity and making it happen, the only person who can do that is you. No matter what happens and what you're going through, change is going to happen. But you are the one that has been called and given the destiny to make it happen. No matter what you're going through, and the key word is through, you're going to come out of it. It's called a season. And right now you're going through a season. A lot of people are going through a season. But here's the one thing I want to tell you about a season. There's a time for planting. There's a time for harvesting. And you're now positioning yourself to be in that place of harvest. It is your time. It is coming. I'm excited about what you're about to do. I'm excited about what we're about to go through. Because again, the key thing is going through. And when you start to go through, you start to appreciate the journey. And that journey is what makes you stronger. But remember, the journey and the knowledge you learn along the way isn't really for you. It's for all the people that are around you. And I'm excited about what we're about to do and how it's about to all come together because the time is now. And I know you're getting ready for it. So look, we're about to kick off for today. I got an amazing guest that's going to be joining us today. And she's joining in. But I'm telling you, it is going to be an exciting day. And I'm excited about all things we're about to kick off. I'll be talking about real estate, how you get started, and some of the basics. But I'm going to be telling it from a different perspective today. So I'm excited about what we're about to do. And I'm getting ready. So give me a few seconds for the countdown, and I'm going to try and bring it on. Guys, I'm so excited. You'll be excited to see who it is. Talking about mentorship and development. Let's go get it. And how to get this game in real estate and start building wealth. Think big, dream big, be big. No, guys, hold on a second. I'm trying to bring her in. She's coming in. I'm having some technical difficulties. We're going to get there. So while we're doing that, I want to play a quick reel for you. I don't teach my mentees real estate. I teach them wealth because I invest in a whole lot. I've had everything from hair salons to crypto to everything else. But real estate was a platform for me, and it gave me the impact. And when you ask me what's more important, it's finding young guys like y'all and young ladies that look like me that I can show you what the other side looks like. Because tomorrow is promised. You're going to get that. But what will it look like when you sit? Look at how we focus on the problem and not the solution. I tell everybody, all my mentees, I tell them one thing about problems. Problems are unique opportunities to find solutions. Problems are unique opportunities to find solutions. I am a solution-oriented person. What do people solve them? I want to solve problems. We all have value. We all add something in our communities, and you've got to find out what that looks like. Wow, that was exciting. So I'm working with Sharon. She's going to get on, guys. again, I'm always excited to bring mentees on that I can kind of have them tell their story and talk about the journey, but also some of the things we've learned along the way and some of the cool things that they're doing that you can do that makes this game simple and kind of creates a win for you. So she's having some technical difficulties as always. When you're about to do something great, I'm telling you, that's when the devil hears it and he tries to hold it back from you. But we're gonna overcome this today and get through it. So I'm excited. I know you're excited. You've been tuning in for last fireside chat, and once you really start to see what we're doing, how we're doing it, and really chiming in, we got the YouTube channel is just dropping in. So once you see that YouTube channel, I'm telling you, go out and look at on YouTube, Mr. Christopher Dennis, and you'll see all the stuff that we're putting out on YouTube. Some of the shorts, but also some of the reels, because I'm dropping nuggets. Getting prepared this weekend to go to Invest Fest. If you haven't, I'm excited about that. So I hope that you come down to Earn Your Leisure and see that. I'll be talking to the man himself and getting to hang out with some cool people. But at the same time, it's all about building that mindset and getting that exposure and getting ready for that change. But look, our guest is here. I'm going to pull her in. I'm going to let her introduce herself. But today, you're in for a treat. And I always talk about diversity across the board when we're building things. It's not about looking at a community from one lens. I look at it from all lenses. But right now, we're going to talk about investments from a different lens. You've been hearing a lot from me about what I've been doing, but let's listen to some of my mentees, but also particularly a female. And I'm excited about what she's doing. But let me introduce her because I don't want to steal thunder. She's amazing, and she knows she is. So look, here she go. Hey, Miss Ross, what's
up? Good afternoon, everybody. I am Sharon Scott, aka Sharon the Don. It's a playful nickname, but it kind of stuck because I do invest in real estate. I try to collect and hold as much as I can. With the economy changing and circumstances changing, I've had to pivot. But I'm still here. I refuse to let go. I refuse to go under and stop doing what I do because I love it. I've been in real estate since 1999. I think I met Chris in 2019. I think it was. And I was introduced to him by another big hitter in the industry. And it was just serendipity. We just happened to be at the right place at the right time. And I knew that I was in the right place because people like Chris were right across the street doing the same thing I was doing. So that was super exciting. And then, looking at the Charlotte market and so on, and things changing, there is still a way to make deals here, even though everything seems so expensive and out of reach. But I wanted to talk to you, like he said, about diversity, because the game is a little different for women. And it's kind of like an unwritten rule, and we don't really talk about it because, like, as Black women, we're taught persevere no matter what, just get through it. No matter how thick and deep the mud gets, you make a way and you make it happen. So, there are some drawbacks, obviously. Sometimes men don't take you seriously. I'm wearing my little t-shirt and my braids today. And, sometimes people look at you and they say, oh, she's not dressed like a person who has her own business. She's not entrepreneurial. But once they start talking shop, and then I'm explaining things to them, and I'm talking about, your T-square and your standard width of a doorway, a hallway, counter height, stove top, then they're like, wait a minute, hold on. I'm starting to get a little more respect because they hear me speaking the language and they can tell by the choices of words I'm using, how I'm assessing a property, that I know what I'm doing and I know what I'm talking about and that I've been in the business for a while.
Let me ask you a quick question, Ron, because you jumped right in there, and that's what I'm talking about. She's a go-getter, guys. Look, if y'all out there listening, when I met her, I'm telling you, I was so impressed. I walked in and she was going through I tell people change. And change is always good. In change, you find out who you really are. And when I walked in, she was like looking at stuff and kind of was trying to figure out where to go. And we talked a little bit, and I'm like, wait a minute, let me just stop you for 1 second. Everything that you're doing is on the inside of you. And the first thing I ask you, how do you feel right now? I'm always asking mentees all the time, how do you feel? And once she identified with how she feels, I think it just kind of cleared up because at some point, I think when we're busy and overwhelmed, we look around trying to figure out how does it all make sense. But when you stop in that moment and you answer how you feel and you reground yourself, you can move forward faster. And she did that. Guys, I'm telling you, if you have not met this young lady, you need to meet her. She's doing it. And for all the females out there that say that this game is a man's game or it's hard to get into, here's your perfect example of how to do it and how to make it. But let me ask you one quick question. How did you actually get started? I mean, when you thought about it and you looked at it and you saw the mountain, you said, I want to climb this mountain. What was the first thing that ran through your mind? And tell me about how you, because I like that, how you felt when someone either told you could or you couldn't. Did that happen?
The first investment property that I bought because I was finally having my breakthrough in medical research. That's my expertise. My area of expertise is in clinical trials. And so I was making all this contract money and I didn't know what to do with it. I wasn't 30 years old yet. I wasn't married yet. And I was like, what is everybody doing with their money? And they're like, real estate. Duh. And I was like, what? How come I didn't know? But I was new to making all this money, at this young age. Not no kids, just kind of like trudging along. And I was like, yeah, it's true because I got all this money in the bank. I'm just going to spend it and blow through it. So instead of that, why don't I be smart like I normally am and careful like I normally am and buy a house? And I bought it in Smithfield. And so if anybody knows about Johnston County, there is not a whole lot of places for people who look like me. First of all, I'm trying to invest and hire contractors. They're all good old boys, and I could tell that one of them had a serious disdain for me. I mean, his face, it looked like he had swallowed a sour lemon or something, like every time I came around. And I said, good grief. Okay, I get it's Johnson County. I understand I'm from California. But the one that was in charge, he seemed to be like intrigued with me. Like he had never talked with a Black woman who spoke the way I spoke, who knew what she wanted to do, who had the money to do what I was doing. And then he was like intrigued with me. And I was, of course, interested in like, why do they have just this total hatred? What's with the rebel flag and all this? Because, I was fresh from California and I wasn't experiencing all of this. But, of course, racism, but not to the point of Smithfield. And I say, if I could get through that project with those good old boys, we set up how we wanted to do the payments. We set up with the times that we would meet. And in business, as with any relationship, if you set the ground rules, like Chris always says, know the rules of the game. If you set up the rules from the beginning, you shouldn't have any problems, any rough patches. Because when we ran into issues that we didn't expect, we talked about it. We agreed about on a timeline and we agreed about an amount. And everybody signed off on it. And there were no gray areas. There were no questions that weren't unanswered. We maybe had some communications that we had to do. Is like, okay, do we want to go this route or do we want to go that? How do you want to pay for this? You want to just include it into the big project? Because of course, if you change anything, you're going to incur some additional charges. But
Yes.
again, if I could do that project with those folks who hated me or people like me, by the end of the project, they were smiling and laughing. Even the one who sucked on the sour lemon, and they were just as happy as a clam. Now, I'm not saying that I changed anybody, but sometimes it starts one person having a conversation with another person, right?
Wow. You dropped a nugget there because I think that's a key nugget. Let's go back for a second. So you end up facing a challenge, and in this that challenge, you met some, I call them gatekeepers, people who at that point didn't understand who you were walking in, and they kind of prejudged or had a past notion of who you should be, and so they created some barriers or assumed barriers. But you were able to do the project, and those people now were looked at you a lot different, and I'm assuming they almost became your friend because you got the job done.
Right.
What I want to point out with that is once you show people who you are, it really doesn't matter where you come from, how you look, because then all they see the fact that you can move forward and you can get it done. At the end of the day, I would prove someone right, so they can't sit and say I proved them wrong. So proving them right just means, look, what you thought of me, that's your narrative, but who I am is far greater. So I'm gonna prove you right that I can get it done versus that you prove me wrong. That how I look or where I came from dictates the attitude and image that you created. So let that sink in because it sounded like I said in reverse, but no, I said the way I wanted to say it because I want to prove people right. If you think that I can't do it, I'm gonna prove that I can do it, and I'm gonna do it so good that no matter your wrong becomes my right. So
Yep.
again, you did that, and I'm proud of you, and you made that sense. So again, you proved some people wrong, and you able to go through the process. So how did that make you feel once you did it? Did that give you your legs? Did that
Oh my
inspire you?
gosh. I bought 3 more properties after that because the the project was over. I wasn't spending more money. I was making money because I put a tenant in there and they stayed for like 12 years, another stayed for like 7. My tenants pretty much bought that house for me. And then when I needed to offload it because it was getting deteriorated to the point where it's like you're going to either sink a lot of money into it or you're going to offload it, then I sold it for a really, like, I think I netted 95K when I finally sold it. So it
Wow.
had made me a lot of money up until that point, and that was just the bonus at the end, the cherry on top.
Wow, and I think that's the key thing is when you start looking at that, is that once you understand the power of a struggle, that's what people all the time. I'm always going through
Yeah.
a struggle, but the struggle makes me stronger, and I don't mind. It's like a spring. I don't mind when I'm being pressed down because it makes me stronger, and then when you release me, I go 10 times higher, and that's what I saw happen to you. And that day when I first met you, I was like, you were already ready. It was inside of me, and you've been tapping into it ever since, and you've been on fire. And so I think this is an amazing part for anybody who is looking to really get in, and that's a female and thinking that you can't do it. But I think there's some things you can point out. So
Yeah.
in this process, when you guys started, you had to get really really detailed on how you did things, and you set the ground rules. That's a nugget.
Mhm.
You gotta set the ground rules, and the key
Yep.
part of that is knowing the rules to set. So again, getting a mentor, a coach, or having some skill sets that you apply from other
Right.
places. So how
Yeah.
did you know how to be so detailed and go through the process? 'Cause it's not easy just to buy a home and then
Yeah.
renovate. That's not easy. So tell me,
Right.
how did you gain those skill sets?
So I had recently bought my first home anyway, so signed my life away and all this other stuff. But this house, I knew I could afford to pay for it outright if I needed to. But my friends advised me don't use other people's money. Get a loan on the house. It was a small amount. And again, if anything happened, I didn't get a tenant or whatever, because remind you, this is my very first rental property. So of course I over improved it. I did all the rookie mistakes, spent a little bit too much money for the area, but it all paid off because I held it for so long. I held it for like 23 years or so. So yeah, that was good. And then the skill, I won't say serendipity because I went to the top. I asked, I went and met the neighbors. I said, I made sure they knew who I was every time I drove up. When you meet people and you build relationships, they look out for you. So they'll tell me, oh, there was a guy here the other day looking through the windows. So, okay, let me change the locks. Let me put some blinds up, things like that. Because I am from the hood. So I know how to, deal with a neighborhood, you know and just signing off the papers. And then I went with who everybody recommended. I had asked about 6 people who they would recommend do the work for me, and they came up with one name. That name kept coming up. They were like, he's the best in the area. He has a lot of pull because he could make or break you. He could say nobody work on her project and nobody would have worked on my project. But the way I paid him on time, he said, I'll work for you anytime. You pay on time. He gave me lots of compliments. And he's like, for your first project, you did very well. But business is business, right? So in order to conduct business, you have to stay professional. So that's the thing that I have to say. There are going to be people on the crew who are going to try and flirt with you. They're going to try to find out where you live. They're going to try to ask you out. They're going to do different things that they just don't do with men. And so, you have to just kind of shake it off. I wouldn't say overreact and go crazy, but you can still work. So just like any workplace, right? When you go into an office, there might be someone who's interested in you, shoot their shot. You say, no, thank you, but no thanks, politely.
Wow.
And that's the end of it. So when they found out, oh, she doesn't play any games. And, my husband was 6'4". Yeah, it brought him around a couple times and they were like, oh, okay, yeah, she's good. We're going to, leave her where she is, because
That's
you have
it.
to use your feminine wiles to know how to handle people, right?
I think that's
Yeah.
so powerful. Again, you said she's again, and I know this is a taboo conversation because people there are women out there right now that I've met. I've gotten some DMs and people talking about as far as being a woman getting in the game is a little bit of a challenge. But
Hmm.
again, she's just dropped the nugget. Relationships matter, and it's all about finding out the people that are actually doing it. I want to rewind just for 1 second because she said something that was powerful. She talked about how do you find that right contractor because you don't know everything and you've got to rely on
Yeah.
what's on the screen. Relationships
Yeah.
matter. And she basically went out and found that one contract that everyone was talking about. That was the top guy, and she put her eggs in that basket and said, "Let me rock with him and make sure I do the key
Yeah.
thing: pay him on time, figure out his schedule, and be detailed in what you want to do, and make sure you learn that process." That was a key thing. And again, I'm gonna tell you, I did the same thing. I always try and find the people that
Yeah.
are good at what they do, that are excellent, and then I learn from them along that way. So again, these if you're watching right now out there and you're asking yourself, I'm trying to get in the game, male or female, it doesn't really matter. This is how you win at it. You've got to go in and play the game to win, but you also got to understand all the rules. Rule number one: relationships matter at all levels. So wow, so you did that. Now
Yeah.
I want to back up. I want to go back into this. So when you fund your first deal, how did you fund your first deal? What did that look like? The funding for your
So
first deal.
I had all this money in the bank and I didn't know what I was going to do with it. It wasn't slated for anything. I was just saving it. And I thought, I'm not making enough money saving it, just putting it in a savings account or a money market. That's not getting me anything. So again, I was talking to my colleagues who were, one of them, she was driving that two-seater Acura, like on Pulp Fiction. She had a yellow one, like that wolf was driving, and she was living in Miami, living the fast life. She had immigrant boyfriend who didn't speak any English, and I didn't know how that worked, but he was a kept man. That was her guy, and she traveled, she did the same thing I did. And I'm looking like, okay, what is she doing? She wasn't buying that car. Her tenants bought that car for her. So I
Wow.
said, how can I make this work for me? And the other thing was when people said, don't buy in that. Well, I was already living in that county. So yeah, I was going to buy in the county where I live. So when people were discouraging me, I said, no, 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 no. You can do business with anybody as long as you start speaking the language. You get them to, you win their trust, basically. Go where they think you probably won't go because they're going to test you. I'm walking in with my suit on and all this after work, and they're looking like she's walking through this filthy house in this outfit. I didn't get a
Mhm.
speck on me, but I walked through it and I watched them show me, where the tasks were, where the problems were, and they did an excellent job. And the key there was, one, be relatable, right? Don't let people discourage you from going into places where they say maybe they can't do business there because maybe they're too judgmental or they feel like they're above those folks. That attitude will come across and those people will run you out of there. But because they saw that I was friendly, I was kind, I was relatable, even though I looked a little different, maybe I talked a little different than they did, they embraced me eventually. And we did some deals and they were like, okay, call us for the next one because we like the way you do business. So I ended up with a few more properties in rural areas just like that. So, don't let people discourage you because they can't do what you're doing. The
Wow.
other thing is have a plan, right? So I had a plan and then I had a backup plan. I was like, all right, I knew because I was looking for rental properties in the area before I moved out there. And I ended up buying because the rentals were like crap. I mean, it looked like the people had just left 5 minutes before I arrived. They didn't clean anything, they didn't vacuum anything, they didn't paint. It was horrible. And I was like, they had a dog. I mean, and so I knew buying a property for rental property was a really good idea because there was no inventory out there. So that was another thing that told me I'm in the right area, I'm in the right time, and people. You should have seen people lining up to rent that property out. It was a really nice thing. So don't be
Because you
fearful where other people won't.
because you were making a blessing. You went and you saw something that was negative and you gave it a whole new image look, and
Yeah.
you made it happen, and you made it to where it would be a blessing. I always talk about think big, dream big, be big, and people
Yeah.
think that being big is about money. No, it's about being a blessing. You became a blessing. Now
I
that
did.
when you, I always say when you become a blessing, money will always follow you. So that
Yep.
create that cash flow, and that
Yeah.
cash flow started to cover things that you wanted to do. So wow, that's amazing. Look, that's a
Hmm.
nugget right. So you built,
Yeah.
you were blessing, and your cash flow was able to cover some of the things you wanted to do and change your situation, but
Yep.
also you were able to give an opportunity to someone else. And I think that's the key thing. And I tell people this business is about service. So now let
Hmm.
me ask you a hard question, because I want to get into this, because I think people, there's some negative narratives. And be candid. It's okay. I'm gonna ask you a hard question about, how they feel, because you said you're that buy and hold, which I am. I tell people I'm not the guy to come talk to about flipping, because that's not what I do. I want to build communities and help change lives and help show people how to build wealth. And wealth is actually owning real estate. It's a
Hmm.
component of owning real estate. So how did it feel to be a landlord? Because that is a part of the process of buying and holding. So now you were able to take some of your earned income, which is your job income. You were able
Right.
to take that income and turn it into passive income, because you
Yep.
didn't go buy cars and all that stuff. You went inside like I did. You bought a house, and that house
Yep.
created passive income. But now you
Yep.
got that passive income, and you're in the service industry, helping
Hmm.
people. Now, how does it feel to be a landlord, and how's that experience been, good or bad, or good and bad?
Well, the good obviously outweighs the bad because I'm still doing it, right? Um, I have had times where I'm like, I'm sick of this. I don't want to do this anymore. I've had, male tenants who, like, they say the chain on the toilet is broken. I don't know how to fix it. I can fix that, so I go over and fix it. And he's like, yeah, the light bulb on the porch, I can't get to it. I don't have a ladder high enough. So I bring my ladder and uh, fix it. And of course, like, he's watching me walk up the ladder and all this. And I'm like, are you calling me just so I'll come over here? He's like, yeah, because I see that you fix everything.
Wow. Wow. Oh
Okay.
my, look, is that a stab to all my guys out there? Is that a stab to all my guys out there? Look, she fixes toilets. Wow. Look, I
I just
fix
fixed
toilets
my
too.
toilet in my son's room at my
Wow.
house. Yeah, people are always shocked. They're like, "Wait, you did that?" Because somebody told me that I'm too prissy. They're like, "You look like the only sport you ever played was synchronized swimming." I play basketball, volleyball, softball, and badminton. So yeah, you can come and you can come for me if you want to.
That's
I'll
what I
show
said.
you a little something.
So by fixing, and that, I tell people that's called sweat equity. When you
Yeah,
buy it, when you actually live in a home, you have what's called sweat equity. And
yeah,
that's when you're actually working, and doing some of the work yourself to
yeah,
cut down some of the cost. But you're putting equity into your home by doing the
yes,
work. You start to buy and hold. I tell people I'd rather learn how to do some things than
yeah,
not to know anything, have to pay somebody for it.
right,
Because when you start to look at what it costs to fix that toilet, it may be a $10 fix, or it may be $100 fix. But the whole thing is, you actually now understand that process, and you get to decide at what point do you want to call that plumber and get you out of jam. But I at least try it
right.
first. Why? Because you're learning, and then once you start to
And it's
learn,
your property. You're like it's yours, so try it. But I had paid like $250 for somebody to fix a toilet for me before, and now I know there is not a single thing on a toilet that should cost $250, except for the
learning
time
point.
of the plumber. Right? That's it.
Yeah, and I think that's it. Once you learn, once you see the things always, and that's, I think that's a part of life that most people miss, is that they don't understand it. Once you try something, and if it is hard,
Yep.
once you understand how to get around that one obstacle, guess what happens? You learn to get around other obstacles.
That's right. That's
Mentality.
100% correct. Because sometimes you try it, you can't fix it. Um, I can't lift a toilet. I know how to install a toilet and everything. I can't lift a toilet by myself like a man can. So I know when to call the plumber. I know when to ask for help. So, if it's something like, oh, I can fix the chain on it, I'm going to do that. I had a tenant even ask me, and this is where it gets a little touchy, where you get sensitive, because there was a single mom, just like me, who had issues with her boyfriend, And she put him out and everything. It was my property, and she was afraid, he would come back and different things. So she didn't sleep well, for like a week. And then she called me up. She told me the situation, and I was like, okay, be totally honest with me. Are you going to get back with this dude? Because I'm not wasting my time and my money, because he's not on the lease. All this and that and the other. So I changed the locks, and then she looked at me. She was like, "Wait, you got a power drill and everything? You're changing the locks?" I said, "What landlord doesn't know how to change locks? That should be the first thing you know how to do, right?
First thing,
First thing.
yes, learn how to change because you got
When
locked
you
somebody
buy
up.
a property, that's the first thing you should do is change the locks. You secure the property as your own, right? So yeah,
Yep.
I got my DeWalt and I changed the locks. You know, did what I had to do legally to ensure, and then I called him. I introduced myself and who I was. I said, this is my home, and I hope you don't plan on, breaking in, kicking any doors or whatever, because you are banned from the property. You're not on the lease. You have to know your rights as a tenant. If you're not a tenant, you're not welcome on the property. You will be trespassing, and I will press charges maximally. And, I had my business voice on. I think he knew I knew business. We had met before in person, and that was how it went. And we didn't have any problems. So that's
Wow.
something that we go through as women. Like some guys may be like, call the cops or, do what you got to do. But, you know,
But
I
you said
sympathize with her as a single mom.
But you said earlier setting the ground rules, and we talked about it earlier, building good relationships. Because I think the one thing you just said was you called and wanted to talk it out and talk through. And I tell people
Correct.
all the time, I think good conversation, even as a landlord, can solve 99% of problems. I just went through a court battle, and it was all over lack of communications. And I think communication is always key, and being able
Always.
to just communicate. And I tell people you being a landlord, you do have to be the bigger person 90% of the time.
Yeah.
But again, you're in the service field, and this is what it requires. And
Hmm.
if you think you're
Hmm.
frustrated at your job, come try this because it all makes sense when you start to really look at it. And I think that's the key thing that you have to drive and figure out how it all works. So I think
It's
the
true.
key thing is having that good relationship, having
Right.
the communication, and then learning how to do some things to solve some of your own problems. I mean, that's a nugget and a handful right there. But we're
Imagine
not
how
going to
that
stop.
built my relationship with that tenant. She was almost never late anymore. I mean, she needed to get that deadbeat out of her life. I think that was part of the problem with the late rents and the back, paying the late fees and all that. And then once we got him out of her life. Everything was on time because she wanted to please me. She was like, she did me a solid, so I'm gonna do right by her. So again, building relationships, right?
Yep, and I think the key thing too is that you're able to impact people's lives as well. And again, so you really get to see both sides of the coin when it comes to people. I tell
Right.
people a lot of times, really just trying to talk to people, not as a landlord, but more just as, hey, look, maybe some of the things that I've gone through in my life can impact your life. And I'm not telling nobody to be a social worker, but what I'm saying is everyone
Yes.
needs a conversation. And you never know what a
Right.
person's going through. I was just had a tenant of mine, man. She's been with me for a while, and I was so I've always encouraged her to do things different. But we had a great conversation. It was a great opportunity. And we talked about where she was and what she was doing because she's hardworking, but just ran on some hard times. And I was like, if as a landlord, just have a conversation and we can solve problems. And I think
Hmm.
and that's my next question. As in what you do in buy and hold, how is it important to figure out how to solve problems? I think that's the biggest thing. How good are you at solving problems now, being in this field?
Well, if you're in it for the long haul, you have to build positive relationships, right? You have to be able to communicate. You have to understand the value of your property and protect your investment, right? So, key is like, people expect you to be emotional. You're a woman. Stay calm. Listening is like 80% of a conversation, because a lot of times, like Chris said, it's a lack of communication. Sometimes people just want to be heard. They feel like they don't have any power, because again, I have some houses in the hood, and they everybody's told and handed down to, and sometimes they want to express themselves and be heard. And I'm a good listener. So if we have some kind of conflict, I'm like, hey, what happened? How did we get here? Like what's wrong? Tell me what's wrong. And like Chris said, you're not trying to be a social worker. You're trying to get to the root of the problem. It could be the person just lost their job. They don't know how they're going to pay their rent, and their unemployment is going to be kicking in a week after rent is due. So then what do you do in that situation? You give them a break and you wait a week for your rent. You still get it, but it's just a
That's
week late. You give a person that break. That could be that break that that person has needed, and now she can breathe, get back on her feet, and kill it later. But if you don't know and you're just pushing back and you're like, oh, this is the formula I follow and this is it, you might run into a few more problems. People will take all your light fixtures. They will, trash the place before they leave, invite people over, have a big party, and then you have to clean it up. I've seen that. I've seen where tenants retaliate against landlord. I've had, ladies, I helped them a lot get in. I've helped them, their kids. And then when their rent is 3 months past due, they don't understand why I'm evicting them. Honey, I need to pay this mortgage. That's why. Because I'm using other people's money and they want their cut of the rent. And with no rent, there's no cut. So hey, we got to get it.
and I think that's key. So let's tap into something else because I think you said something that's powerful. So when you start looking, so now you went through that whole process. Now you're a landlord, you're working.
Mhm.
Tell me about your banking or finance experience. What was one of the key things you wanted to know about that you had to know about financing a property,
Right.
specifically for an investment? Because you got for those who are watching, if you look in the comments, I did put in there three ways to fund. Talked about traditional, talked about private money, and talked about non-traditional. So that's in the chat. Check that out. I gave you
Yeah.
definitions. I like to give definitions for information. But on the other side of the coin, tell me about your experience in working with traditional or other people's money, and have you used those in combination to do what you've done?
Well, because I've been doing this since 1999, I've seen some things happen. I've seen some changes in the industry. I mean, I had upwards of 700 credit score. I had all my documents online, my taxes, my pay stubs, my bank statements, and so on. I had a traveling job. I could get loans for properties traveling. I never showed up in an office, never went to the attorney at all. We would do DocuSign or they would do FedEx and send it. I've had FedEx documents to a hotel where I hadn't even checked in yet because I'm expected to sign off and get this deal. Try that today. It's not happening. Um, I never used hard money. I always got mortgages. And sometimes I would pay cash for a property and I would get either a HELOC, equity line of credit, or I would get a refi and buy another property. So that having a good credit score, people say is not for nothing. If you got money, cash is king. No, 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 no. You can go a lot farther with good credit. So pay your
You
bills on
got
time. They got the black tax anyway. So if you can pay cash, you won't get that higher interest rate or whatnot. But I've even had a banker say, your credit score is good, but I don't understand why it's not higher. And I just smiled because it's that black tax. I don't know how they tag it or how they do it, but somehow it happens. So again, you have to persevere. You can't let that hold you back. It was still above like 720, 750. So that's not bad, but it should have probably been 800, 805. So I would still say, push through, try to get, don't waste your credit. Don't have a bunch of store credit cards. Have like three maybe, and only use maybe two of them. Keep that one for emergencies or whatnot, or like big purchase items and so on. And like people say, don't use more than 30% of your credit if you can
yes.
avoid it. Just have good habits, develop good habits, take care of your credit. Don't go co-signing for other folks because people will mess you up and then you're stuck. So yeah, there is a limit.
Look, we just talked about that. If you guys out there, go out and look at the fireside chat we did with Brian Willis talking about credit. Man, if you missed that, you missed out on a lot. But go watch that, and I'll tell you more about about this that credit piece, because it is important. Now I want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to see that. So I think that's a key thing. So
Yeah, for
again, it's
sure.
all about being able to utilize the tool sets. And remind you, talked about a HELOC. A HELOC is a revolving line of credit, and you get on an actual property. So now that's
Yeah.
sitting there that you can use that capital to either buy, renovate, or take care of other expenses. But remember, you want to keep 30 up to below 30% utilization, because it's hard to affect your credit. Guys, these are nuggets if you're dropping, and I'm so excited to have her on. And I really want to keep diving deep. I know we're getting close to our time because I want to be respectful, but there's so much more I want her to tap into, and I'm gonna tell you, she's dynamic. So Sharon, so now we talked about now a little bit about the financing piece. Let's kind of dive into when you start looking at knowledge, and how are you learning? I mean, how important is it to have mentorship and
Oh,
continue to
gosh.
invest in yourself?
So I didn't find my tribe until I met Chris Dennis. It's crazy because I was talking to people and I was feeling a little more comfortable. And I'm like, there's a whole village of Black investors here. I'm in the right place. Finally, I finally found my place because I was doing it all myself, trial and error. Even the friends that were investing, they only had like two or three. I had 10 at that point. And I was like, well, I'm at the point of no return because if everything becomes vacant, I'm stuck. But why would everything become vacant? People need a place to live. And I'm not a slumlord. I have properties and I will definitely make them to where I would live in any one of my properties. I will not, have people. Chris even said, maybe you're making it a little too nice, and I'm just like, well, the devil's in the details. I might want $200 extra. I don't want to charge the same thing that the next door neighbor is making. I want a couple $100 a month more because mine is nicer, and people feel that. That is that's real.
I want to point that out because I think that's key, and you have to look at it relative to where you are
Hmm.
and what your objective and your goal is depending on what you do. Now I'll tell you we talk when I say too much. If you're renting a property and you've got it's like $600, you wouldn't go put granite in there. You wouldn't go put this in there. I'm not saying that you can't. I wouldn't do that because
Right.
then I'm not going to recoup that in rent, and the cost to
Right.
do it it goes up. But the key thing is as you start to look as the area and taxes and those external forces. I'll talk about that in another conversation. If not, catch me on training. But when you start looking at external forces that
Hmm.
drive your that are eating into your cash flow, you have to do a little bit more to get a higher rent when the area actually meets that. So you have to provide. I always tell people I would never renovate a house. I put someone in a house that my grandmother will live in, but that doesn't mean that it
Yeah.
has to be the Taj Mahal. It may be just something I would live in, but not my grandma. But you want to make sure that you're giving people a quality place to call home. And I'll tell anybody, do not become or be a slumlord to any tenant. That's not what I do. That's not what I teach. That's not what I preach.
Yeah.
Provide a house that you would live in and you put your grandma in, and I guarantee you have done due diligence and service to not only yourself but also your tenant. Go ahead.
It's true. And that's a good segue to the mentorship. Because again, while I had surpassed my colleagues who introduced me to real estate investing by saying, this is where you save your money, I still didn't feel like, oh, I'm it. I don't need any more information. I got it. I'm doing this thing. No, not at all. You can always learn. So when I got mentors, I'm learning I'm paying way too much for insurance. Why do you have you need just fire and pay way less insurance. Um, Go to these.
Oh, that hurt. That hurt. Didn't that look?
Oh
That
my
was.
God, that was so painful. I was overpaying by so much. Then you learn because I had the money, but that doesn't mean waste it. I'm like, no, that's cutting into
Oh,
your profit margin.
I don't think you were wasted, right? I really don't think that you were wasted. I think what
It
happened
was
to
an
you the same thing
expensive
happened to me.
lesson.
Well, you were taught one thing because you bought your house, and the rules that apply to your house doesn't apply to your investments or your investments because it doesn't operate the same. So
I wasn't
and this was
thinking like a
clear.
boss, but I am now.
you go. Yeah, 'cause I did the same thing. And that was when I had a mentor, and I decided that I was at the point I just started, and I got my mentor, and we were sitting down talking. I had a hard time paying a fee for my mentor because it was a two-way street, and we sat down, we started sharing, and he pulled me up in the front of the class. He's like, "So tell me, how many properties do you own?" And I raised my hand. Everybody raised their hand. We were all there, and then he said, "Well, so how many people have insurance on their properties?" Everybody raised their hand, and he said, "So how many people paying, having or have a fire policy or a full policy, a full policy?" And I was like, everybody except for me raised their hand. Now I had the most properties at the time, and I raised my hand. So point of privilege. He said, "Look, you had an issue paying this small amount for this course, but over the last 5 years, based on what you paid on your whole policy, because you did not know all you needed was a fire policy to protect the inside, to protect the outside of the home, because tenants rental insurance protect the inside of the home. The cost of the class, you paid that 5 times for the lack of knowledge that you did." So I tell people, your mistakes cost you more than sitting in front of someone that knows the rules, that can share basic information, things that you don't even think about. I mean, the things we talk about in our little groups are things that most people don't think about. How do I build wealth? How do I manage this? How do I look at different avenues? How do you go about financing not one property but 25? What does that look like? On development, what are performance? Based on how do you look at global cash flow? How do you change some of these terms to really start dynamically doing things totally different? Those are the things that drive you to the next level. And that's what we're talking about.
Right. So mentors are super important. Sometimes you get, like I said, I was ready to quit at some point. I mean, tens were driving me crazy for whatever reason, but it was my mentors that are like, this doesn't last. It's just you hit a rough patch. You can't have all ups. You don't get all green lights. So like, why do you think you're so special? Like, what do you think your formula is so different than others that you never have any challenges? And I'm like, that's true. I mean, it's just, and it doesn't last. You might be going to court. You got all your documents. I keep my documents tight. I send the letters that I'm supposed to. I know my rights as a landlord. That's very important. Understand when the tides change, you still have to understand the rules. So know the changes, know how that works for or against you. I know this one guy, he used to take the doors off. He wouldn't even take his tenants to court. He would just go take the exterior doors off the house. Who's
Oh,
going to live in that house? Anybody can walk in. So people would pack their stuff up and leave. And I'm like, somebody's going to arrest you. Like, you can't do that now. And somebody ran up on him one time and he was like, oh, okay, that may not be the right way to do it. But everybody has their technique.
Oh, no, don't do that. Don't do that again.
A mentor would work that out, would show you and guide you and tell you when. But that's the thing, be trainable, always be listening, always be willing to learn. Because if you think you know more than the teacher, look at the Karate Kid. That didn't work for him. Everybody needs a Mr. Miyagi. Always listen. And if that person is generous enough to let you ride their coattails up to the top, honey, be there, hang on tight, and learn everything that you can learn from that person.
And I think that's so powerful, Sharon, because I think people forget about that. And why would you want to? I'm always telling my son that as well. Don't ever try and recreate the wheel. Look at the wheels that are turning around you, and figure out how to be a better wheel, and learn from some of the mistakes, because the board, just like chess and checkers, the board didn't change, just the pawns. So the rules between the two boards is what dictates how you play the game. So whatever you do, man, get around people and be trainable, be teachable, and just try and find people that like Sharon said earlier. You said find your tribe. Again, I tell people, if you're looking to flip properties, that's what you want to do. Now I'm gonna tell you again, building wealth has components. Now I can tell you the components can be broken down in different ways. If you watch some other watch me on YouTube, my YouTube channel, you'll see some of the things you're talking about. But I tell people, I'm the buy and hold guy. I'm on that buy and hold side. So if you want to learn flipping, and that's where you are right now, I can give you the nuggets. I can show you how it attaches to buy and hold. But I will tell you, the tribe, this may not be a tribe. because you
Right.
got to figure out what tribe fits you at what time and then how to connect it together. But remember this, it's your journey and your path, and you're the one that is responsible. And when you start to look at the whole big picture of how it all fits together, you.com are the one who's making all that happen. And if you when you come to some of my trainings or you tap in, you'll learn about you.com, and it's powerful because we waste a lot of time not realizing
Absolutely.
that you.com is the most important thing. For those out there that follow me, you know what I'm talking about. That's that secret, that's that mindset. But the key thing I'm gonna tell you is just make sure you understand, because everything Sharon said is so powerful. And I know it hasn't been an easy journey. So Sharon, I'm gonna ask you, I'm not gonna sit there and put that word in your mouth. Has this been an easy journey? And is it been and has it been fulfilling and worth it?
Right. I'm going to answer that, but I also want to add to that last comment that you said, share the information that you learn. Don't just hoard it and keep it to yourself. Share it with who is willing to listen, just like you were, because you never know what a person is going through. And that little bit of information sometimes is small, but it has a big impact. So that's it about my sharing information. But yeah, so the road being easy, absolutely not. With the bottom out of the market in 2008, I took hits on that. But what I did was I held the property, even though we paid too much for it because we were flipping. Because, like Chris said, so I was holding mine, and then my business partners wanted to flip. So I was like putting money in there, turning my back. They say, "Oh, is this a good one?" Or I give them the thumbs up or the thumbs down. I didn't have to say anything else. Just where's my check when we had the plan to collect the money and flip. We were doing very well, and then the bubble burst, and there was, nobody was buying, and so I had this 9% plus interest rate when interest rates were like 5 and 6%, and I knew that was, but we didn't plan to hold on to the property, so we didn't care about interest. We were only holding it for 30 days to 3 months. So no worries. Who cares, right? Well, I held mine. Everybody else let it foreclose. I got tenants in there, and actually, I was putting a little bit of money with their rent in order to pay that mortgage because the interest rate was high and we were priced out of the rental market. But I persevered because the way I was set up, I had enough properties that it was covering that. So it was a wash, right? They balanced each other out. So you do have to be smart. You do have to have a strategy. You can't just go in guns blazing, just doing things crazy, willy nilly. Even if you don't have a mentor, at least have a plan, right? Because if you
Yeah.
don't have you don't have a plan, you don't know what it's going to turn out to be, right? Where's your objective? What are you moving toward without a plan? So have your plan, know how much your budget is, make sure everything fits before they say what, measure twice, cut once. Because once you cut that piece of wood, it's cut, it's ruined. If it's too short, you got to go buy another one, and that's cutting into your profit, right? Your cash flow is not, that's not the way it's set up to make you money. So
And
just go
those
smart
one
about it.
and those one hit mistakes cost you. I'm telling you, when you get into the whole game, you really have to understand that everything matters. And again, knowing the rules saves you money, but not knowing the rules costs you money. And those
Right.
mistakes, regardless, some of them you can't recover from. When you make that one mistake and you think, "Oh, I can recover from it," and it's a $1,800 mistake. Well, remember, you in over a year, you're not going to make that $1,800 back, and so you got to take that over 3 or 4 years and just learn. I mean, but again, you want to be a blessing, you want to change lives, but you have to do the most important thing: know the rules, and that
Yep.
equals having a plan. Sharon, this has
Yep.
been amazing having you on today, and I think it's powerful. So tell people how they can actually find you on Instagram, or how would you want people to? Because I specifically have a heart for a lot. I've gotten approached by a lot of women. They want to get started. They want to know how to get in the game, and I'm telling them, join the tribe, find the tribe, let's
Really
connect.
try. Yeah. What are
So
you waiting for? So my Instagram is at Sharon the Don. So SHAR. I'm trying to put it in the chat. I got to type right.
I think
Underscore underscore Don. That's me on Instagram. On Facebook, I'm just Sharon Wesley Scott. Um, there's an accent on my O. I'll show you how it looks in the chat.
I just post out there for those that want to know. That's her Instagram. I tell you, follow her and see what she's doing. Again, you can
There we
always
go.
chime in. She's always been amazing. Not again, people say I mentor them, but I think they mentor me more. I've gained so much knowledge from just watching her work ethic and seeing it. And then when I walked in the first place, man, seeing the extra little things, you can learn so much. God, God, look, guys, tune in. Look, y'all can learn
Crown
so much.
molding will do an amazing thing for a room, no matter how small the house is, right?
Now, when you walk them out, you be like, Chris, can you add some play? Oh, let me go look at Sharon's stuff and look at some. Because again, when you go watch the little things make so much sense. I'm
They
gonna do a
have a
whole
big impact.
my next
Yeah,
fireside check. I'm gonna try and do something around showing you just some simple little tricks and tips that can
that's
change the
good.
whole layout of a house. And I'm gonna tell you, take a empty room like a kitchen and a living room, and you throw some crown molding at an angle, and then drop down and create a little fake wall and add some more trim around it. Man, you got
Hmm.
some. I ain't gonna drop that on y'all ready. They ain't ready. For the ones who ain't started yet, you ain't ready for that yet. But I promise you, that will make somebody go in, walk in the house and say, "Wow, this is nice."
Hmm.
And all it
Yep.
is a wall painted white with some trim. And again, it's not about you, it's about the people that you're creating the opportunity for. When you understand what
Blessing.
true service is, it's never for you, it's for somebody else. But it creates an opportunity for you. And I think that's what Sharon's been talking about the whole time, that
Yep.
opportunity. So, look, guys,
Yep.
this has been powerful. Again, I want everyone to tune in because I have a big passion around making this game real for everybody and people that want to get in the game and understand it. But I also want to leave by just telling you it did not take one day to get here. I've been doing this for 20 plus years, 20 years, and it has not been easy. But I will tell you, anything that is easy may not be for you. But what is for you, and what I've learned the most powerful lesson is, it's not how long it took. It's the journey and the things I learned along the way, all
Right.
the people I've helped. So
Yep.
again, Sharon, any last words before we chime out?
Yes, I mean, you get your blessings and you get your flowers. Make sure you give your flowers to other people. Give them while they're here, not at the funeral or whatnot. Be a blessing, and you continue to get blessed. So that's
That's
it.
it, guys. Look, I know everybody's out there. Y'all so excited. Look, go get it. Let's make it happen. Tune in. We got amazing fireside chats coming up. Got some amazing guests I want to be bringing on. But we were talking about the same thing: building wealth and building real estate. I'm dropping these nuggets. If you haven't signed up for Invest Fest, it's gonna be amazing. Sharon, I'm sorry you're gonna miss it this weekend. It's
I
all right.
know, I know.
Look, I'm gonna take them pictures for you because it could be amazing. I just want to, and the reason people ask why you want to invest, because you said, look, she said earlier, be teachable and be trainable. I
That's
want to
it.
get around people that are doing big things. Why? Because I can
Hmm.
continue to grow. And I'm just excited. Again, I want to mentor more people and touch more people's lives, but also I want more people to touch my lives, and I want to do bigger things. So again, this is where
Yep.
you do it. So tune in, chime in, follow me on Instagram at Mr. Christopher Dennis, and then also hit the YouTube channel. We got some nice shorts and nice videos out there. Keep doing it big. Let's go get it.
Keep soaring with eagles.
There you go, Eagles. All right, I'm tuning out. Y'all be good. Enjoy the rest of your day. Make it happen.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks.
Hold on a second.
Bye.
Hold on.